Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. My name is Uti Elu and I'm excited to be joined in the studio today. The awesome Dami and the, what should I describe her as? The delectable NG. With the copper blonde hair.
Yeah, it's so
giving
cute.
all sorts of vibes.
I know. I'm
The
just
jealousy
enjoying-
vibes in this heat.
I know. I
Honestly,
know.
because
Trust me. You know, the other day during the Easter holiday, I had the opportunity to go to the beach because I wanted to go to the beach, and I got there and I just jumped in the water. And you can see girls, you know, everyone was looking fly at first, and the next thing the wigs are coming up.
Wow.
And some people had to strip their lashes.
Oh my
So,
God.
you know,
See the joy on her face. Gleeful. She can't help herself.
you don't see the true form. So go into the water, come out. You're like, oh, that's what you look like. Okay.
Yeah, so mean. Okay.
No, but it's just interesting. So trust me, all I'm trying to say is that I'm really, really enjoying this time.
We can tell. We can tell. Dami, the people that have more hair on our head, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm all right. I'm energized. I feel alive. I'm good.
Okay. I wish I felt so energized and alive. Right now, Uti is sitting here and she's speaking, but her spirit and soul are asleep.
Receive life.
That's the only way I can put it, because
We're here to hold your hand through it all.
That's right.
I am drained, I am tired, I'm exhausted. Is there another word to explain tired? It's all combined, all joined, right? But we will get through the show today.
Oh,
Definitely.
Excited? Well, the topic is, excited is a reach, but I'm interested in this topic and what our guest has to say. So here's what we found as today's quote. Anyone who stops learning is old. Whether at 20 or 80, anyone who keeps learning stays young. And that's by Henry Ford. When was the last time we learned something, formally or informally?
Last time. Today.
Aha.
Yeah.
I think it's important for you, as long as you're alive.
Yeah.
You learn a new way, and it's not like you having to go to school or anything. So it's a question of, oh, you didn't know how to do something on your phone, someone teaches you. That's a new thing.
Yeah.
So you can teach someone else, or you can tell someone else how to do it. So you learn every day. I think you stop learning when you die.
Yeah,
Well, so that statement is very powerful, but I'm amazed at how it isn't true for a lot of people. So there is a curiosity, there is a wanting to learn. So I find that I see people experience things, but you can see that they just they don't learn as they go along. Okay. So there's a need for curiosity, there's an awareness of wanting to acquire knowledge and wanting to soak things up. Akin to a sponge, right? You can pour water on it and, you know, it expands. But you could do the same to plastic bowl, and the water just sort of, a sieve, and the water just goes through it. So I think there's a consciousness that happens that has to go with the acquisition of knowledge. But you're spot on in terms of, you know, learning every day. I love those social media memes and say, how old were you when you found you found this out? And I mean, there's so many things that I've learned from social media that will I even call it learning, but it just comes to your awareness and you're like,
yeah, it has been right here.
It's right in front of you, right? I remember the day I saw the video on the gift bag. So you know the gift bags, you hold it up. You know it has those like tabs on the end. So apparently you squeeze, you put that through, and then you pull it and it locks them. I was like, see, nobody told me that. So that was a social media thing. But yeah, adult education is so important. It is a critical component of national development, fostering economic growth, social cohesion, and personal empowerment. However, in Nigeria, adult education has often been neglected, leading to detrimental consequences for individuals and society as a whole. So today, Mokhtar Mohammed is here to discuss the topic, adult education, the consequence of neglect, and agenda for action. And when we open our phone lines, we'd love to hear what you have to say. But first, let's take a break, see what we found in the news. Please stay with us. You're still watching Ways. World Cloud Security Day is like a lighthouse helping us break through a dense fog of, well, clouds. It's a time when the invisible cloud-based threats we too often ignore become visible. The day also reminds us that sometimes the forgotten idea of ironclad security in our cloud-based adventures. This day seeks to bridge the gap between data clouds and online safety. By doing so, we all play an active role in enhancing the safety of our digital footprint. So whether you are on cloud-based apps for personal use or run a business, vigilance is absolutely needed. I think we all sort of take for granted with passwords, authenticators, we take for granted the fact that, and I think particularly more so for businesses, the advent of cloud-based services, Amazon, Microsoft, all of these companies, right? We're also, in fact, that's far away. Google. We all have OneDrive, we all have Google Drive, we all have these places, and we never stop to quite think about how much of our lives we have given. You know, your pictures, your videos, everything is on there. I mean, if you even use like a password generator, even your password now is like is on somebody else's hands. Yeah. And we hear all these stories about, you know, companies getting hacked and how much information someone who wants to actually do real damage can get their hands on. So we've given up a lot, or rather we've gained a lot by leveraging the cloud, but we've also now added a measure of vulnerability to it. So I think good that days like today exist just to remind people that, see, two-factor authentication should not be a joke anymore. Everybody should have multiple layers of authentication, particularly if you are a business. Because, I mean, it was probably January or so, back to back, like 2 hospitals in the US were hacked. And, you know, like people literally are holding hospitals ransom. Like, you've taken control of it. They can't do surgeries. They can't see patient records. They can't. So the more we depend on technology, the more the vulnerability. And then, of course, we have cybersecurity experts to keep us safe. Well, so that's the thing. So it's like, as with, well, so on-prem is actually not that bad. I think that it just depends. Again, that's a thing for organizations to determine whether they want to, because I think also a lot of software providers now are creating software as a service. So rather, if you remember the old days, we used to be able to jailbreak and buy, you buy the code, but now they've turned them all to subscription services. So for those kinds of things, even a lot of these sort of companies that provide these things, because of that, they would rather, they build for, you know, cloud. So on-prem really is like bespoke. You know, you've got to be a big organization to say, I want this on-prem, right? And then you've got to have like the capabilities to actually, and infrastructure to support it. So everybody just stay safe, be vigilant, and make sure that you keep your passwords and, you know, all your digital. That's the only way I guess, like, what's going on here? But it was sad to see that, you know, they had experienced a 7.4 category earthquake. And I believe it was during rush hour, so, you know, people were out and about moving. As at this morning, I think when I heard the news, it was 4 people dead. I think that's gone up to 9 now. And, I mean, just to see it is incredible. The buildings, I think for me, this is more a testament to the quality of a build, because anywhere else, these buildings should have collapsed. Right. On the road. That they are tilted on their sides and the foundation is still able to hold it just speaks to the quality, you know, of the building, and just, you know, the quality of the build. So they're to have that sort of size, or what's it called now, magnitude. Yeah, that's the right word. Magnitude of earthquake, and to only have 9 people dead, even after they had I think it triggered a mudslide, it triggered a mini tsunami. I mean, earthquakes tend to have lots of ripple effects, because I think this one went about 20 meters deep. So the further it goes, the more problems it causes. So, I mean, we're glad that the damage is not more than it is, and that the loss of lives is, it could be so much worse, right? So for those that have lost their lives, you know, may they rest in peace, and we hope that they, you know, everybody that's injured gets well, and those that are displaced are able to settle down. But it could be so much worse. So
yeah,
please.
Raham from Fortress Link Law Partners, and with me is Barrister Uche Matthew, also with us. We went to the authorities to submit a petition on behalf of our client, Pastor Nathaniel Bassi. The petition is against one Mr. Okoronko Ejike, Mr. Kingsley Ibe, and 2 others.
All the different blogs that are out there, right? People want to know what's going on, and I'm like, in this time, I guess some people are looking for distractions.
Yeah.
But the reality of
Then
it
again.
is, I mean, there's some things that are they just go too far.
Yeah.
Even if, like you said, even if it's something that you're now saying, I want to do, should I call it public service, and I want to maybe guy doesn't know or whatever, then make sure you have evidence. You don't just come out and say something. So, I mean, I like the way that is being handled in that, you know, they've gone the legal route. You know, we're not hearing stories of the police being used to harass or whatever. So I hope that it comes to, you know, a logical conclusion. But I think that one, you know, Nathaniel Bassi is very well known. He's very well liked, loved, respected. Not only is he a popular figure, he's also a man of faith. So you have to take these things. Not everything can be a joke. Not everything can be, you know, haha. There has to be a level of seriousness with it. So I wish them all the very best. Tell me, what did you find for us?
So yeah, my news basically is about airpeace. You know, recently they just London pricing strategy have compelled foreign carriers to slash their fares. So maybe, I mean, I don't see how this is long lasting, to be fair, right? But then again, in the meantime, when it is happening, I think that it's very good for business because they will definitely make their money, right? There are a lot of people because the prices of flights are quite on the high side right now. So people are trying to look for different cheaper alternatives, right? So whether or not airpeace, now, I mean, apologies or no offenses to airpeace, but whether or not it's a very trusted air flight for that long distance, people would probably gladly take that option because it is relatively rather affordable at this time. Right.
So, I mean, I don't know what the ticket prices look like. I mean, I was surprised to find out, was last year, I think, that they flew to India. I was very surprised to find out. And then it was more the case of they're now flying international routes, which is fantastic. I mean, we've had Nigerian carriers come and go from Nigerian Airways to Virgin Nigeria so historically, you're like, well, let's see how long this is going to last, right? But then there's also, so for me, I like to balance the conversation. So first and foremost, we know that the foreign debt to the airlines has been cleared. So now they're opening the cheaper class. If you sort of understand the trajectory, there was the fact that the lower ticket prices were not available, or the lower classes of tickets were not available. Then the dollar issues layered on top of that. Now, you know, this has sort of been sorted. Then, you know, the dollar is, you know, coming down. But then this is one airline. So if it's just like with every business, you know your customer. So I'm very clear that you're not my customer. That's why a Lamborghini is a car, a Toyota is a car. They all get you from point A to B. It doesn't mean that people don't stop buying Lamborghinis because Toyotas exist. So I'll leave it at that.
That wraps that up.
So let me just take my story quickly. So my story is actually a few days old, actually, but I loved it. I saw it, you know. Anything that's a feel-good story for me that concerns Nigeria, I love to talk about it. So my headline says, Nigerian man swims almost 3 hours non-stop across Third Mainland Bridge. He's the first ever Nigerian to attain such a feat. So the headline is a bit wonky. So what it is that a man named Akinrodoye Dare, known as Dre, has done what we're calling the unthinkable. He's completed a 2 hour and 33 minute non-stop swim across the Lagos Lagoon, which is the body of water actually under Third Mainland Bridge. So he swam the length of that water that the bridge goes across. And of course, Third Mainland Bridge is Africa's second longest bridge. Important to note, so that people don't start jumping into the water tomorrow. You know, that's how what's her name cooked, and then cooks where everybody was trying to cook. I like to point out that he is a swim coach, so he you know, he has the stamina. He's capable of doing
experience.
But he swam 11.8 kilometers. So yeah, so he achieved this feat, and he did it again. For me, that was the other important thing. He did it to raise awareness of the suicide attempt. So, of course, we hear these stories periodically of people jumping off Third Mainland Bridge, to commit suicide. So he did it for that purpose, and he was able to complete it. So have helped. That would have helped. That would have helped. But yeah, I think wish him all the very best. But I think we can take a break now, and when we come back, we'll jump right into our story. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Adult education is the process whereby adults take part in methodical self-educational activities with the goal of learning new knowledge, abilities, attitudes, or values. With a population of roughly 120 million with an adult rate of 7.06%. Over time, the approach extended throughout the nation, pressuring individuals to acquire foundational knowledge of a basic education. There have been several national development plans since 1960, but none of the specific provisions for adult education have yielded fruit. That policy was updated again in 1981 to not only address lifelong learning, illiteracy reduction, and continuing education, but still has had little effect. 29 years after that, the policy's enactment, 68% of Nigerians at the time, aged 16 and older, were still illiterate. Since then, the government's commitment to adult education as a strategy for the nation's long-term development has not been demonstrated by any practical or all-encompassing programs. This illustrates how adult education has been neglected in
right, that makes people say, oh, I don't have time, or yada, yada, yada. So they should make it more relaxed,
flexible.
More flexible. Thank you, that's the word. Make it more flexible, whereby anybody, any adult really can come on board, and then make it easy, because we need to also understand that the way the brains were at that age.
I don't mind this older. There are plenty of stresses. They're worried about the price of food.
So imagine having to now learn one very, very cumbersome. Like it's not workable. But I think we're not prioritizing it enough in Nigeria, and I think it should actually be prioritized.
Yeah, okay. Let's bring in our guest. So Mukhtar Mohammed is the founder of Finance with Mukhtar, a personal finance platform established to help people grow and change their mindset on finance. He is an international finance and economic analyst on BBC Africa, Arise TV, Channel Television, CNBC Africa, Inside Africa on CNN, TVC, and also a stockbroker, personal finance coach, budget planner, and an advocate for financial freedom. He believes that being a financial analyst is not just being on TV, but making an impact on the younger generation and the masses on how to build their incomes to a fortune, and it is his passion to give back to society and make our country a better place. He joins us now by telephone. So Mukhtar, if you can hear us, thank you for joining us. Good evening. Hi Mukhtar, can you hear us? That's not the case. So when we even talk about what is the feeder into education, into children learning, we have a problem there. So we now have a huge population of adults. So when we say adults here now, we're talking from 18, right? That's the legal adult age in Nigeria, who should be gainfully employed, who should be, what is it called, contributing to our economy, to our systems, to our GDP, our growth. But that in itself is a problem. Why? Because they don't have the basic skills. They don't, even when we talk about, we say it a lot, common sense is not common, but then there's a real valid thing behind that. If you don't learn critical reasoning as a child, it's difficult to pick up as an adult. So you see people, in the workplace now, and you talk and they're like, I mean, how does that make sense to you? But these things have far-reaching consequences, and that neglect is what we're sort of suffering today. But thankfully, and I want to say thankfully, right, technology has come in to sort of improve that. But then the ecosystem, so if I even get to technology, we've always had part-time courses, adult education in sort of the formal, what I would call continuing education, because when we talk about adult education, we're talking about the gamut of everything. So it doesn't have to be classroom-based, it doesn't have to be in the formal. You can have the informal, you can have the non-formal. So even things like apprenticeships. What's the movie that's trending now? Afamefuna. The Waboy. So even that is a well-established system, right, of apprenticeship, and so that in itself it can also be classed as adult education. Then you have continuing education, where I've got some basic education. Maybe I think everything after primary school is classed as continuing education. So whether it be, so there are all these attendant issues and problems and challenges.
I think the last point you made itself is even an issue. When there's an age bracket, say, okay, if you are beyond this age, then you cannot be employed. So at the end of the day, someone who probably started off school late or even got into university late is probably discouraged to continue. There's also the strike factor. Person is just discouraged entirely to continue because they're like, okay, so after I finish this thing now, I'll be so old, and then at the end of the day, I won't be able to get jobs because there are so many age restrictions here and there. So I even think that employers actually need to relax on that a bit.
So that's a good point to try. I believe our guest is back with us. Hi, Mukta. Good evening. Can you hear us? Thank you for joining us. Great to have you on the show. So I hope you've caught what we've been talking about so far. We've been trying to set the scene around what adult education is, continuing education, sort of the things that we have available in Nigeria today. So, I mean, given that you have committed yourself in that sort of area of personal finance and teaching young people and giving back to develop that particular skill, so we can class you or we can call you an adult educator.
Geography like me, or whether you read engineering, they don't teach you how to save money, how to invest money, what are the things you have to look at. Even in Harvard, you have to learn those things, and those things are what you come out and then decide to learn it like a professional course. So that's what I'm saying. You have to learn and unlearn. That is the greatest challenge. And one thing I've observed and I've seen over the years is that once they have the formal education, it's always difficult for them to want to have this informal education in the sense of reading, the ability to read outside of your core profession. That is the greatest challenge.
Wow. I think that's very important because just the first statement, the ability to learn and unlearn, I think that's one of the greatest challenges we face nowadays, because in our old age, we find it very hard, changing, unlearning those things that we have learned that are not necessarily beneficial to our current status or our current position in life. And it's very, very important for us to know.
What you just said, I think that has been my greatest challenge. Like I said, sometimes the ability to know that you don't know these things, so I need to learn it. Informal education. There's a saying that formal education will earn you a living, informal education will earn you a fortune.
Yeah.
So the ability to tell them that, okay, let me give you an example. I have a professor in school. He's a professor. He taught me in school. But in the area of personal finance, I want to teach him. But sometimes profs feel that, what are you telling me? I'm a professor. I've learned so much. So you have to now begin to ask prof,
So if you're just tuned in, we're discussing adult education, the consequence of neglect and agenda for action with Mukhtar Mohammed. Please let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can send us an SMS or WhatsApp message to 0818-038-4663. So Dami, I'll hand over to you.
All right, so Mr. Mokhtar, I would like to ask what the consequences are for neglecting adult education and the impact on the workforce, productivity and economic growth. I think I have a two-in-one question, actually. The second part of that question would be that how do we then ensure equity in access to learning opportunity? Because there are a lot of people that don't actually have access to this learning opportunity. So that will be the second part of my question. Thank you.
Okay. I think about your second question, let me start with that. I think that has to do with government. Before 1910, Nigeria, there used to be an agency for adult literacy. I don't know if that agency is still functioning like it used to function. There was a department like that in the Ministry of Education, and they come out with jingles to tell you, Once you teach them read and write, how to read and write, the next thing you need to teach them is a book. You cannot read, you cannot write. Then what would they be able to do with it? Is it to just communicate at home, or they want to use it meaningfully? And once you have an education, the next thing you want to do, you want to use your education to earn something. So once your education is not moving you towards earning an income, you become frustrated. So the bottom line is sometimes we do this education system, but again, we do not do specialized type of education. We generalize education. I don't know whether I've gotten that. What about the first question? You hit it in the nail. I think it's a thing that has been going on. At the time we left school, there are some certain financial institutions. You must school at a certain university before they will take you. Yeah. There were some other institutions, when they came up, you must school in the UK, one prestigious UK institution, or maybe a private university or a school in the UK before you'll be employed in those organizations. So I think is something that we have tilted towards over the time, whereby we value certification, especially formal certification. And that has been the bane of our problem. That's why what we see, we produce half-grade graduates. Sometimes you get graduates that are not able to even do the work for you. I give you an example of myself. I read geography in school. That's what I read in school. But on graduation, I worked with a geographical firm for just 2 years. So after that, till now, about 15 years, I've been in a financial line. So I have to develop myself in those areas, getting certification and also building myself to be able to get to the standard I want to. So, but if I have used that, if I've gone to an establishment and said, I have passion, nobody will take me.
Yeah.
So, because that is the mentality we have, we must show something for you to be employed in the particular space, which on its own is not bad. But again, if you have somebody that didn't go to school and can do it, I mean, if he went to school and he has been able to develop himself in that area, you should give him the job.
Yeah.
Thank God for the first generational banks or the second generational banks, maybe not the second generational bank that came. They're the one that came up with this thing. Whether you're an engineer, whether you are whatever you are bred, just come for aptitude test. If you're able to do it, then you pass it. Then we'll train you.
Yeah.
Now, the area of training is another key aspect that we as a nation have not developed. So what we have is somebody comes out of the university and is in front, and yet he cannot perform. If you look at most of the topmost performers in Nigeria, let me talk about the corporate world, you realize that most of them did not even read finance, especially in the financial sector. They are either engineering, they are either in law, some even read social sciences, some read business administration, they didn't read accounting. But today, they are the head of those institutions. So it has to do also, in as much as we have that certification, we also have to do what I call you also developing yourself to grow. Because there's where the hard skill, I call your certificate the hard skill. Then the soft skill is your ability to continuously learn, to improve yourself, to be better than what you were yesterday. That is the challenge in Nigeria as it stands. And a lot of things could be deduced to what is causing those problems. Sometimes the hardship in the land, somebody just looking for what to eat, give me any job, I just want to earn a living. Nobody wants to pursue his passion because if you don't know anybody, you say, is it passion that will eat? So that for me is the greatest challenge. That is why I keep saying something. Why we had problem in the military, because a lot of people that are in the military, that's why we've not been able to defeat terrorism, went there because they lack job. It's not because they were called to be military. In the 60s and 70s and 80s, when Nigerian Army was one of the best force in the war, they were called. They were not going there because they were looking for a job. They were going there because that is what they want to do. But today, you are a graduate or you are a school cert, you don't find a job. The next thing you are looking, if the force is there for you to enter, both the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Police, the Nigerian Navy. So that's why we are having the security challenges up to this moment. And by the time they get in there, they graduate, we throw them into the front of battles. They are not really trained. So training is there, then the area of that mentality that this is what I want to do, I am determined to do it.
So yeah, I mean, you've raised some really, really important points there, and I like that you touched on personal development and training, because one of the key things, or would I say, when we're talking about how people can take action now, if we were to call it that, an agenda for action, is now the solutions that we have, right? Technology has brought learning right onto our palms, our pockets, our houses. It's become easier. So that sort of technology, e-learning as a concept, now allows people to access. I mean, data has gotten cheaper. People can access information from all over the world. But again, there's still that mindset. Someone even still said it to me that, oh, you know, those online certificates, they're not really rated. So we're still getting lost in the qualification rather than the acquisition of knowledge. So looking forward at the opportunities that exist today, and particularly for someone like yourself who's dealing with personal finance, how can we change that mindset of people to say, look, no knowledge is wasted. Whatever you gather is usable, whether there's a certificate behind it or not?
We have to start from the top. It has to be, you see, why we have a lot of senators or members of House of Rep, or sometimes even governors forging result sheets, is because of the attachment we have placed on certificate. Of recent, I think was it during President Tinubu or President Buhari, where a serving minister was a copper.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there was also an on-air personality that also had to go and serve. So we need to, in that area, I think it boils down to our mentality as a people, and then the ability to train people. Like what we have seen. The shining light in Nigeria today is our financial sector. They have withstood the test of time in spite of all the challenges. They are now global players. We could use that as a template and look at that institution. What has made them strive is training. In that institution, you have people that read engineering. Sometimes I have a friend that was a doctor that was reading a microfinance bank.
Yeah.
So he was trained. They just wanted to have that willingness to learn. So again, the personal side will always have to play a role. Do we really know what we want? Or are we there because we want to make a living? So the point is, in spite of technology, how many Nigerians can afford technology?
That's a very key point.
So by the time you go around and then you now see that the government still have a very high role to play. Of recent, we were made to understand that the Chinese, most of the Chinese that are brought here, are even dropouts. But they come here and they are giving instructions to graduate in Chinese and Indians.
Yeah.
But they were trained.
Yeah.
So before now, there's vocational training institutions. When we're in school, there is people that goes to technical schools. They call them technical college.
Yeah.
Then you have technical college, you have science schools, you have government science school, government technical school, then you have the normal secondary schools. But these days we don't have that. So that is before now, any technical job, you are good at technical jobs, you go to polytechnics. They will not call them technicians. And they are good at delivering some of these results.
Yeah.
So the challenge has to do what is our own education vision as a nation. What's our curriculum?
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head, really.
Most educational institutions in Nigeria, especially the private schools, are involved in British way of teaching.
Yes.
I remember a friend of mine had to withdraw his child from the private school. Say, why are they teaching them the history of Britain? Henry Ford. His child no more of Henry Ford than Nnamdi Azikiwe Tafawa Balewa.
Well, so I guess you can look at that from the perspective of where the child is going. So parents are thinking about the future. But, I mean, you've raised so many key points and highlighting action and agenda items for actually solving this problem.
Yeah.
Not everything is a formal education, and I think we've said that several times on ways. But thank you so much for joining us, Mokhtar. We've sadly run out of time, but we look forward to having you on the show again, perhaps to talk about personal finance, because we can always learn more about money. So thank you for joining us this evening. We have this comment from Nelly Ume that says, education never ends. It is a thing of the mind. It is what anyone can engage in at any time. There's no particular time for it. It shouldn't be ignored because it's what every one of us needs. She also says that I don't think adult education is neglected in Nigeria. A lot of adults now know the benefits of going to school. I don't think we go to school just to be employed. We do that to acquire knowledge, being able to read, write, speak, and so on. So thank you for that, Nelly. That was a comment from YouTube. I think we've nailed the topic.
Yeah,
We've talked about the issues. We've talked about the
Actions,
challenges and
yeah.
what can be done next. So we hope that the government does more in the area of education, because that aspect of critical reasoning, which we didn't even talk about today, is a whole other show by itself. But we hope that people can leverage the opportunities that there are today to take advantage. But I think the last thing that I would say is really that non-formal sector. Mentoring is a huge thing. Yeah. If we each took one person and taught them what we knew, we would create critical mass. So I'll leave that there. But thank you, ladies. It's been awesome spending this time with you.
Yeah.
Before we go, do ensure you Show Africa and Official Upgrade TV. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, follow all our social media engagements. And remember to like, share, comment, and invite your friends and family to watch and follow us. If you missed today's quote, here it is again. Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. So we'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screens. Bye-bye.